Well, I'm not going to comment on that presently because it's an active litigation. As you know, I did send a letter in to the Ledger because there was a lot of misinformation out there that I wanted to clear up some of the misinformation. The case is in the court system. It's in the best place possible. I'm going to allow the court system to do what the court system does best. Our primary duty is to handle civil process through the municipal court. We carry out all precepts of the municipal court. We work in conjunction with the clerk of the municipal court's office too. As you know, or as you may not know, the Marshal's Office was revamped in August 12th of 1915. But the Marshal did everything from tax collections to, and we have to consider the times in which we're talking about. We're talking about in the 1800s.
Frontier days.
Yeah, frontier days, but there are also some things that are very sensitive to talk about now, even dealing with the African American community, because even back then the Marshal, if a African American had his porch light on past a certain time of night, then the Marshal or his deputies had to inflict 20 lashes on them. So the Marshal has gone from issuing lashes to really issuing love in the community. We do 31 different types of civil process, everything from levy to garnishments, evictions, dispossessory warrants, and evictions is what we handle the most. For the past years, it's been pretty consistent. We've received over 5,300 evictions per year. Some years it's went up to almost 6,000.
How many deputies does it take to handle 5,300 evictions in a year?
Currently, we've been doing it now with about 14 out in the field. Counting reserve, civilian, and full-time, it's probably about 30.
How many full-time?
We have about 20 or 22 on the road. The deputies have a very, very dangerous job. Marshal deputies do more building clearing than anybody in the city, and it's a good training tool because it's a good training tool for shoot, don't shoot, if you will, because when we go to do an eviction, the landlords can't go in the house. We have to go into that house to render that dwelling safe. And so that means that we have to take out our weapons, we have to hold traffic on the radio, we have to go in and clear every room and render that dwelling safe, and then we can let the landlord know it's safe to come in. The Marshal was created through a legislative act. The Marshal handles the precepts of the municipal court and some magistrate court. The Marshal has a distinctive duty, as the sheriff has a distinctive duty. When the office was created, it gave the Marshal the authority, the same authority in municipal court that the sheriff would have in superior court.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Is the sheriff is a constitutional officer of the state? Are
mm-hmm.
you a constitutional?
No, I am not. I'm a municipal.
So you okay? Okay, I don't want.
There are only 4 constitutional offices, although there are many elected officials. The probate court, the clerk of superior court, the sheriff, and the tax commissioner. Those are the 4 constitutional offices. But the sheriff's office is a very great agency, and just like my agency, we are people oriented. And when you work in an elected office, you understand the importance of an elected official because you understand that the decisions that you make are the decisions that will affect your boss. And so it makes you a lot friendlier to the public.
As an elected official, who is your boss?
The citizens of Columbus and the governor of this state. And understand, Chuck, that we complement each other. And with the Chief Borens and the sheriff and myself, experience alone almost is 100 years. So there is a inner genius in everybody, and there's a different experience level in everybody. Oh, I mean, even if you have an issue, it's sort of like a relationship because you can consider us sort of brothers in this. because this is the family, and even in your own family household, your family will go through problems, but you don't cease talking, because if we cease communication, it doesn't affect us, it affects the community.
So you respect Chief Board?
Oh, with a great deal. I think that he is a very, very brilliant man, and I've said it to my chief deputy a number of times. I respect Ricky Bourne and his knowledge, and I think that he's a good chief. Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, because my faith is what sustains me. Even before this interview, I had to fast just to get my mind cleared, because when I communicated with God that I didn't want there to be any type of blockage. So not a full fast, but I fast from certain things because I wanted to give up something in order to get something, in order to give you a great interview. But
I can assure you I didn't fast.
Oh, okay. No, but my faith is what drives me. Every morning I get up and I do my daily devotional. When I decided to run for the office, it's funny because I can remember me sitting in my living room at the time, and I was just sitting on the couch, and I just got off of the phone, and it just came out my mouth. I'm going to run for Marshal. Didn't know where it came from. And as I did that, things started, I just saw doors just opening. And I mean, faith is something that grows on you. Faith is something that, based on your experience, and that's why I never look down on a person, because you never know who that person is. You never know where your wisdom is going to come from. What I'm trying to do is live a certain lifestyle, because I believe that when you live a certain lifestyle, and especially when people have power and authority, sometimes people will allow a position to make who they are. I don't want that to ever make me. I want to, because Judgment Day, I have to answer for what I do, not for how somebody feels or what somebody thinks. This is, it should be Ephesians, and I have my devotional here, which is written by a Jack Countryman, no relation to me.
You got your Bible, your fraternity?
Yeah.
That's.
How did you know that that was fraternity?
I'm a frat guy myself.
Oh, you're right. This is a ministry to me. This is a ministry. That's one reason why I formed the Junior Marshal program, because I made a covenant with God that if you get me here, that I will use my authority for the good. And I wanted to reach back to kids that were just like me. A lot of people may not know this, but when I graduated high school.
From where?
From Baker High School in 1984. I graduated as a special ed student. I had a learning disability. I had a very bad stuttering problem. I had problems trying to comprehend.
You don't stutter now?
I do stutter. You just don't pick up on it. But I've learned to say words that are easy to say. That's why I don't use a lot of big fancy words, because I will fumble over them. I grew up on Swan Street. My neighbors were Judge Albert Thompson and A.J. McClone. But even with that, I couldn't enter college, but now I teach on the college level. So I understand that how far God has brought me, because every step I move, I can look back and I can look at how far He's brought me, even if it's an inch. I appreciate that inch. Well, I'm not running a full-time ministry. I am ministry-minded. I go back to and understand that we deal with people at their lowest state when we have to do an eviction. So all I ask myself is, what does it take to be a good neighbor? And it takes me being able to minister to people through good deeds and the things that I do, and the things, because I put my people, Chuck, in a great working environment. I understand what it's like to be rode by somebody just because they have the power to do things. So if I use my faith as my backbone, then you can say that this is a ministry, and I'm not afraid to accept that. I'm a public servant that happens to be a law enforcement official. I believe that everybody that commits a crime should not have to be arrested. Sometimes people make bad decisions, and that officer has the discretion to arrest or not to arrest. Some people's philosophy may be different because of the agency that they work with, and they may feel like everybody needs to go to jail. Every law enforcement officer, whether if you're Columbus State Police or Sheriff's Office, everybody is a cop. Because if you wear that gun and that badge and you have arrest authority, you are a cop. And it's a mindset. And so I'm a law enforcement agency officer that just happens to be elected and a public servant. So I'm not going to say that.
Fair answer.
If we don't have money,
yes, no question.
No. If you ask me point blank, no, because the money should be there, and I think that the taxpayers deserve to know where the money is. I think the taxpayers need to know how they were spent, because if you can look at a elected office and cast judgment on the elected office and say that the sheriff misused his budget, that's a stretch. If you've never worn a uniform, that's a stretch, because I can't tell you what the mayor needs in her office. I don't know anything about the mayor's office. Well, the question would be that why don't we need it? If you say that we are equal, and which I say that we are equal, we go through the same training, we get the same pay, we get the same retirement, and marshals should have the same thing, because we encounter, although we have a primary duty to do civil process, we also have a secondary duty to protect and serve. The police can't be everywhere, the sheriff can't be everywhere. That's a mindset. No, we have 3 law enforcement agencies. You don't hear the President of the United States say that we have a great Marine Corps or we have a great Coast Guard. He says we have a great military, because we are a military that, although we have a distinct mission, we all train the same way. We all have to have the same
You have the same
requirements.
police officer standards.
Oh yeah, we have to meet the same requirements to maintain our arrest powers. When there was park rangers, there was no difference.
Do we need 3 law enforcement agencies?
We do need 3 law enforcement agencies. I know how difficult the job of the sheriff is, because you can't please everybody, and he has to have a budget. Everybody has to have a budget that is going to be sufficient. The police department, everybody has to have a budget, and you can do great things when you have a great budget. But look at the agencies like the Marshal Office that don't have a large budget.
So money solves problems?
Well, let me just tell you this. When I got married, I had a guy to tell me that love is love, but money makes it easier to love. And I think that money allows you the ability, funding rather, allows you the ability to run your office or your department in a way that it should be run. But transparency needs to be there, because it promotes integrity. It promotes public trust. And if we're going to try to build a bridge from one side to the other, the most important part of building a bridge is that you have to build them in sequence from left to right. But the most important thing, Chuck, is what's in the middle. And you have to be able to build those. You got public trust and you got public safety here. You have to be able to work in conjunction. So once you get to that middle part, it can withstand the harsh weather. It can withstand the traffic that comes over, because once the public trusts public safety, you can get whatever you want, even if you make a mistake.